As world leaders meet for the UN summit, the hardest part remains to be done, because only 15% of set targets to achieve the 17 goals are on track. Many are going in the wrong direction.
It's abysmal. It's a sobering fact that we will come into in the General Assembly. Huge implications for everyone. And it is a failure of ours to tackle global inequalities, our triple planetary crisis.
The UN chief was all smiles as he walked into the opening ceremony of the annual UN General Assembly, but his message to world leaders was anything but cheerful.
Excellencies, the SDGs need a global rescue plan.
The sustainable goals are the centerpiece of this year's international gathering. Guterres said they provide the best roadmap out of today's many crises.
So the SDGs aren't just a list of goals. They carry the hopes, dreams, rights and expectations of people everywhere. Yet today, only 15% of the targets are on track, and many are going in reverse.
The SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals, are made up of 17 targets
It is so decided
that were adopted by all member states in 2015, an ambitious blueprint or to-do list which includes fighting climate change, protecting our ocean, combating disease, eradicating poverty, ensuring quality education, and gender equality. This year marks the halfway point for achieving the 2030 deadline, and according to the latest progress report, the world is in trouble. Only some 15% of targets are on track to be reached by 2030. Close to half are moderately or severely off track, and some 37% have either seen no movement or regressed below the 2015 baseline. At the current rate, 575 million people will still be extremely poor in 2030. 84 million children still won't be going to primary school, and it will take 286 years to reach equality between men and women. For a way out of this mess, as he put it, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, "It isn't just government that needs to step up, but scientists, businesses, and figures across several societies." 7 years. That's how long the UN has left to reach its sustainable development targets. Exacerbating crises such as the war in Ukraine, the lingering drag of the COVID-19 pandemic, and multiple climate-related disasters have hampered progress on achieving the 2030 rescue plan. But the UN chief insists there is still time to change course with strengthened political will.
My appeal to world leaders will be clear. This is not a time for posturing or positioning. This is not a time for indifference or indecision. This is a time to come together for real practical solutions. It's time for compromise for a better tomorrow.
Guterres says that means integrating the SDGs into national policies, budgets, and long-term development planning. Leaders will also be asked to adopt a new political declaration reaffirming their commitment to the 2030 agenda that includes a stimulus of at least $500 billion per year in affordable long-term financing for developing countries to help them invest in global goals and break the cycle of debt.
As we mark the midpoint of the 2030 agenda, I have to remind you that if only 15% of the Sustainable Development Goals are met, that is a failure.
In recent years, the UN has turned more and more to young people for hope, vitality, and a measure of guilt when it comes to getting government and corporation to act.
We are the young people of the world, demanding you, the leaders of the world, to fulfill your obligations.
In New York and cities across the world, climate protesters took to the streets ahead of this week's gathering, demanding world leaders help protect future generations and end the use of fossil fuels. The UN says now is the time for leaders to prove they are listening and keep the pledge they made.